Hello there. Thank you for stopping by. My name is Wanjiro. Today, December 12th, 2024, is Kenya's Independence Day. It's 61 years since it attained its independence in 1963. To honor the day, I will read a chapter from my newly published book. I've actually received that book today. It published this December 2024. In the chapter I'll read, it chronicles my experience on that day. It's a long chapter, so I hope you'll hang in there with me. And here we go. Uhuru celebrations. I don't know what I expected of Independence Day, but I suppose I wanted to see or experience something unusual, something transformational, not just nothing. At least we didn't go to the plantations to pick coffee cherries. I consoled myself. That was what we did full-time during our December school holidays. That morning, people in our homestead had dispersed, except for Mommy. She never ran out of chores to occupy her time. With nothing to do, I sat in her house, bored, wondering whether there was anything tangible about independence. Unknown to me, however, people who returned from Kikuyu land were no slackers. They had something to energize the village and mark the special day. On the verge of giving up, I heard a spurt of people singing in Kikuyu. That was unusual. Tugen people were the only ones who sang and danced outside our old village. I knew no other people who did. I went outdoors and listened to determine the source. Then I headed to the main part of the village, toward the main dirt road. By the roadside, I found a group of about 20 people, half of them dressed in full celebration garb. The apparent leader stood at least 6 feet with a medium build. He wore elaborate brown and red cloths wrapped around him, a colorful hat with an assortment of pins, and the long valued ostrich feathers stuck on, beads across his chest, white brass bangles on his wrists, and rattles on his legs. About 10 other men dressed similarly, although not as elaborate as the leader. The rest of the men wore brown cloths across their shoulders over their regular clothes. They decorated their hats with rooster feathers. Several women dressed in leather clothes, tops adorned with beads, and traditional skirts with tails called medhuru. They wore beads, bangles, and humongous bunches of earrings made of red, orange, green, and white beads. Because their pierced, elongated earlobes couldn't bear the weight, women reinforced the earrings with strings that rested across their heads, ear to ear. Some women wore brown cloths over their skirts or regular dresses. Younger women, born after the era of pierced, elongated earlobes, didn't wear the large, round earrings. The leader and his female partner, who was as decorated as he was, except for a hat, earrings, and rattles, introduced the songs. The entire group echoed them, and 2 couples sang the chorus. The group entered the village and meandered through pathways. It grew larger and larger as people joined in, some with rooster feathers stuck on their regular hats. Throngs of children romped behind as the group returned to the main dirt road in front of the village. They inched forward now and then. Behind the leader and core group, dancers occasionally dashed this way and that, waving green branches as a sign of peace. The leader waved his fly whisk high in the air with the rhythm. Occasionally, he whipped his whisk over one shoulder and then the other. I watched in awe, like the other spectators. Most of them, like me, my family, had never left the farm. The singers and dancers bobbed their heads and their upper bodies and stomped their feet as they sang about the Kikuyu history, the war, and about Mount Kenya, the beauty of its snowy three peaks, and their beloved land of milk and honey. Despite the years of servitude they had suffered and endured, they sang, Guy had refused to abandon the children of Gikoyo and Mombi, the Kikuyu's primordial parents. The singers punctuated their songs with chants of Uhuru, freedom. The dance and songs became so robust that one man who used a walking stick in case his legs failed to cooperate waved the stick in the air while he swayed his shoulders and bobbed his head. People who lived closer to the road collected in their front yards or stood by footpaths. Some Christians among them, but others like Mommy, although I suspect she itched to take a peek if she were closer, didn't. She remained indoors. According to Christianity, such celebrations or dances fell into the African culture category and therefore primitive, sinful, and against church rules. But non-Christians, or those who gravitated toward wherever the social wind blew, even if they had never danced, got their dormant senses awakened. They swayed this way and that as they joined the group or trailed behind. I felt buoyed and wished I could dance, but I was painfully shy. Although I felt euphoric, I still believed the school couldn't approve of such native celebrations. Besides, I told myself I didn't know the freedom songs anyway. I contented myself with gawking from the sidelines, marveling at how the singers could remember all those songs. By noon, the crowd swelled to the crabby, uneven road banks, with some people rushing ahead to get a better view of the lead group. It is hard to tell whether the lack of room caused the leaders to make their next move or if they planned it. Instead of letting the spectators settle in one spot, the leaders marched eastward toward the plantation house, about a quarter of a mile away. As I followed, I believed they would reach a certain point and turn back, but they inched on and on. The closer to the colonial house the crowd got, the farther back cowards like me trailed. I remembered grown men whipping off their hats and holding them slightly back in their hands, or the heartless wringing their hands, shoulders hunched, as they approached Major Miller, the farm owner. What would happen if Major Miller learned or saw the boisterous peasants in their traditional garb, singing, marching, and their rattles making quite a racket, as the men stomped on the ground like warriors ready for battle? When the crowd passed the coffee factory, the halfway mark, and didn't slow down, doubt faded from my mind about what they intended. Uneasiness clouded my euphoria, and I feared joining the troops to battle. Who knew what would happen? Major Miller could release his fierce German shepherds on the crowd, resulting in a melee, and people likely getting hurt. Or he could fire the troublemakers or their fathers. But I hungered to bear witness, to claim forevermore that I had witnessed Uhuru celebrations. I inched on from behind among my fellow cowards. When the celebrants reached the Miller's gateless entrance, the core group slightly toned down their enthusiasm as they readied to cross the gate line. The larger group behind hesitated, their voices lowered, but the lead group proceeded inside for about 25 feet. Some wishy-washy remained in between, while the largest group congregated and bellowed their freedom songs at the entrance. Alerted, the boss emerged from the colonial house, about 200 or 300 feet away. He strode toward the small lead group, which toned down their boisterous singing the closer he got. I stood back, way back from the gate line, watching, ready to take off if the boss unleashed his ire. Instead, Major Miller stopped, a distance from the lead group. "Karibu, karibu, welcome, welcome," he said, waving his hand for them to get closer. When they reached where he waited, he beckoned the rest of the crowd to enter. People hurried, milling behind their lead group, which was now in a semicircle. Major Miller in front, slightly on one side. He said something to the leader, likely instructions on the singing agenda. People at the back slightly elbowed each other to get closer. "Nisawa, Nisawa, it's all right, Major Miller said. "Endelea kuimba, continue singing." People resumed singing, hesitant at first, perhaps to confirm he really meant it. As the singing gathered momentum, Major Miller said, "Karibu, karibu, welcome, welcome," waving his hand at the cowards behind the gate and the wishy-washy who trailed in between. He watched the boisterous singing and smiled, which may have been a smirk. He waved, turning left and right to acknowledge his subjects, as if he were the one installed to the presidency. With the other cowards, who would be answerable to husbands, fathers, or themselves, I merely watched, interested in the dynamics instead of enjoying the celebration, resolved not to set a single foot across the entrance, no matter how much Major Miller beckoned. I wondered how the whole thing would play out. He remained there for less than 2 minutes, if that, before he turned and headed toward his house. The farther Major Miller got, the more boisterous the crowd got. When he disappeared to rejoin his family, who must have already peeked through windows at the rowdy celebration, it's possible they made disparaging remarks and chuckled about these poor natives. The dancers stayed in the compound for about 20 minutes while they sang and threw barbs at white people for stealing their lands. They should hurry, pack up, and return wherever they came from. I failed to understand the point of their singing. Major Miller understood no Kikuyu. He only communicated with his workers in pidgin Kiswahili. After all the euphoria, I wake up the following morning expecting to feel different now that we were independent people. Perhaps there would be an announcement. I got disappointed, just like in June during the mock independence. Things remained the same, at least from my perspective. People discussed Uhuru like any other political subject. They returned to work, attended to their families and animals, and Major Miller remained the big boss. That's the end of the reading. Thank you for hanging in there. The book is available on Amazon. And I wish you a very, very nice day. And take care until next time. Bye-bye.